You guys ready to be just dazzled with something like Itil? How many people know what Itil is? This thing's super loud. 2 people, great, awesome. Few, okay, couple. Why are you here?
Because we don't know what it is.
Because okay, so you don't know what it is. Did I get you with the communication and the teaming title?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so that's good. Adventurous people we have here today. This is great. So my name's Brooke. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for Mukilteo School District, which is just south of here. It's north of Seattle. I'm always when I'm at conferences, I always see people taking pictures of the slides. I will give you the slide deck if you want it. I'll give you my email at the end. You can find me on LinkedIn. I try to post all the presentations there after, so you can go there and get it. So I won't be upset if you do take pictures. If that's your style, do that. But just know is I'll give you the real thing afterwards if you want it. Okay? And then as always, like I said to begin with, is follow up. If you have questions, if you have comments, if you have concerns about my antics, you can email me and I will respond or delete it. No, I'll respond. So a few things about Itil. So I'm not going to go too much into what Itil is. I'm going to talk more of what it's done for us and how it can help you better communicate with your staff and also build better teams. Any questions before we start? All right. So it's this, yeah.
I take it your organization implements Itil?
We try to. The thing is that it's really, really hard for a K-12 school district to implement Itil fully.
How many years?
I've been working on implementing various Itil practices probably over the past 8 years. In the past 2.5 to 3 years at Mukilteo.
Cool.
So I'm going to share some of the case studies that give you some tangible examples of how it can help you. And we'll talk about those. Okay? Okay, so rewind the clocks about 2 months. It's the start of the school year. Kids are coming back. Teachers come back. That's really when we find out that a lot of things have gone wrong over summer, right? Kids start coming back, and how do you feel?
It depends.
Overwhelmed, anxiety. This is interactive. Tired. It's always amazing to see like the new teachers, like brand new, fresh out of college. They look so rested, and they're just like vibrant, and they're just like, I can't wait to change the world. And then like 2 months later, they're like, oh, why did I do this? Do you feel like this? Sometimes. Yeah, so we launched a new SIS this year. Anybody do that? Anybody have done that? I know you guys. Yeah. Yeah, it's awful. It's awful, but it's so good. It's so good. Yeah, so I'm not going to tell too many stories about my past, but there was an organization I worked for that a lot of our school years and a lot of our time looked like this. It was always not staying ahead of the game, and a lot of that was rooted in communication and the way that teams are put together and they function together. And so, like I mentioned before, about 8 years ago, I got connected with a consultant that focused on project management and Itil practices, and I'll share their name later on. And so we enlisted, well, I'll share her name now, Cass Tang. If you want her contact, I'll give her her contact. But she worked as a consultant with this organization I was with, and came in and started working with the leadership team around how do you manage projects and how do you communicate with your staff around that. And then through part of that were these Itil principles. Now Itil, for those that might not know, it actually, the acronym, there used to be an acronym. It used to be the Information Technology Infrastructure Library. And then they realized that that is so ridiculous. that they're like, we're just going to call it Itil. And so you can Google Itil. There's like a great Wikipedia site about Itil that'll probably explain it a lot better than I will. But just to read the definition, it's a widely accepted approach to IT service management. So there's a few out there. Itil is used a lot in the United States, in the UK as well. Basically, it's the rules of the game. And we find that a lot, or I've found that a lot within the organizations that I've worked for, is that a lot of times you have great staff doing great work, but they're not playing by the same rules. And that's not to say that they're doing doing anything sketchy or anything like that. But I liken it to like baseball. Like imagine if you had every single position was a catcher, you know, or imagine if every single position was a pitcher. There are certain roles and there are certain rules of how baseball happens. And I've found that when you operate as a team and as a partnership within a department, when you operate by the same rules, you're more effective and you can communicate better together and communicate out with your staff. Does that make sense? Okay, so here's where I probably have to step back and look at my notes. So I love this image. This is the most clear image that I could find to best explain Itil and the best practices. Itil is a series of best practices that you can pick and choose. That's what I found for K-12 is I just pick and choose of what, basically I look at our organization, I say, okay, what's a problem we're having? And then without a doubt, as in the past, is all of them line up with the best practice from Itil. Now there was a former graphic that was just as ridiculous as the acronym. And we were in a meeting one time with an assistant superintendent of business and operations. He's a former accountant and auditor. Really great guy. And we put the old graphic up and we said, this is what we're going to implement. And we were looking at him for his reaction. And he was just what you would imagine from an auditor. And he said, I hate it. And we were like, well, why do you hate it? He said, because it shows that it's impossible work that cannot be completed. And so over the years, as I've looked for a clearer way to explain it. So here we go. There are 3 components, and you can go and do all the reading about this, so I don't take up a lot of time, but there are 5 components, okay? There is, I don't know if I have laser point. Okay, so you have your service strategy, which states what needs to be done. You have your service design. So, okay, so the really confusing thing about Itil, if you don't know, is that the terms are service something, service something, service something. You see that up there? Or something management, something management, something management. The hardest thing about it is getting your head wrapped around the vernacular. Okay? So once again, service strategy. I used to have a laser pointer. There it is. Service strategy right in the middle. That is what needs to be done. Service design. This is very simplistic. So those that are way smarter than I am, and I know there's some of you in the room that I've worked with, don't make fun. Service design is how are you going to accomplish that? Service transition is putting that service into use of how do you transition or how do you put in place a special service. And when we talk about service, we're talking about everything that we do. Service could be the devices that you use. It could be your ISP. It could be a new data center. It could be authentication. It could be training. It could be, you get the idea, it's everything that we do. So the one thing you need to wrap your heads around is that everything we do as a technology department in any organization is we supply a service for the organization to run and operate. Okay? That's kind of hard for some tech people. Okay? It's hard for me. But everything we do has to add value to our organization. If not, that's when you find your tech department in a downward spiral with the organization. Okay? And I've been there, and it's awful. Service, wherever my pointer is, the orange is service operation. That is once that service gets into play. So if we're thinking about our new SIS that we launched. So last year was our service transition as we were, well, it's kind of service strategy, design, and transition all happened in the year. But operation was August 3rd when we flipped the switch off of our old SIS, flipped the switch into the new one. It went into production. It is live. We are using it. We're enrolling students. We're withdrawing students. We're, marking them absent. We're putting bus routing. It is in production. And then lastly is the outer white edge up at the top, or the gray edge, continual process improvement. Sometimes called continuous service improvement. So how are we looking at our business practices or our delivery of services, and how are we constantly trying to make them better? This is one thing that as a district is that we've really been focused on and we've been trying to do. Sometimes that makes the decision for you. For example, is that we're putting currently in our district we're putting the Promethean active panels in every single one of our classrooms. And so they have this new, anybody from Promethean in here? I know they're here. Is Keith in here? Nope. Okay, so they have a really great OPS, a computer that goes inside. They have an Android version and a Microsoft version. And we tested it during the design, during the service design phase. And we didn't find that either one of them worked out for us. Well, our past history, the year before, is we put out active panels before they came up with this OPS concept. And we used a micro Dell desktop on the back. And it worked out really well, and we had learned how to support it. So when the decision came to which OPS, because when you buy the active panel, they come with the OPS, and you have to decide Microsoft or Android. We had to decide, and we just said, Android, knowing that we didn't put them in there. Because when it goes in, we had learned how to support that Dell desktop, okay? I'm going to dig deeper into the continual process improvement. Okay, go online. You can read about this. Okay. I don't know why I went to that slide. Why did it go to that slide? Oh, so these are a better illustration of continuous service improvement. Okay, so there have been a few big companies within the past, decade or so, probably longer than that when you look at the start of the companies, but I think there are 3 companies that illustrate continuous service improvement. And I've used these 3 to illustrate 3 points. One, that if you don't continuously improve, you grow obsolete. If you hyper-focus on improvement, on continuous service improvement, or one point of your service is you could focus in on the wrong thing. And the last thing is that as you move through the process of continually improving, is you'll find that you have very little refinement to do. So here are the examples. Okay, anybody remember this company? Okay, anybody remember what happened to them around 2015?
They got bought.
What was that?
They got bought.
They did. So this is an older graphic. I knew somebody was going to call me out. They still actually make phones. Their phones look pretty cool. But what happened was there was a point in 2015 when they went bankrupt, and do you know who bought them?
Microsoft.
Yeah, Microsoft bought them. Yeah. Okay. What about this one? This is what happens when you hyper-focus on something. Okay. Few chuckles, right? Do you get it? Okay, some people. They just keep doing it. Once you get to a place to where you have refined and refined and refined, is you find that you have something that's excellent and you don't have to do many changes to it. Okay? Okay, so we talked about what ITIL is. It doesn't really matter what it is. It's important what it does. Okay? So I'm going to share 3 case studies with you, and feel free to ask questions. I'll give you more examples if necessary. Okay, so here's case study number 1. So I joined the Mukilteo School District I'm going out on a limb because this could make me look really bad or the district look really bad, but it's actually been really positive and good. So look at it through that lens, if you will, or that perspective. Staff turnover. How many people have an open position right now? Okay, keep your hands up. How many people are rewriting a job description right now? Okay, how many people have had an open position in the past year? Okay, so among those hands, probably about half the group. So I joined Mukilteo School District in the fall of 2015. And what I first found out is some of the key people were retiring right away. Not because I was hired, but because the vast majority of our tech staff, on average, had been in the district, in the department for 20 plus years. We had some service technicians that were over 70 years old and doing a fantastic job. But it's inevitable that people are going to decide not to do the work anymore. They're going to retire. And so that's what's happened over the past 3 years. So here's what's happened. I'm going to go through this quickly. Somebody's going to argue with my math, but I double checked it, it works out. Okay? In 2015-16, I joined the school district. We had 20 staff members in our tech department. We're a school district of about 15,500 kids, about 22 buildings. We had 20 staff members in technology. That represented directors, an administrative assistant, and a point, if anybody was in Josh and Amy and Brandon's, there was a 0.7 TOSA. That was our instructional technology department. We had, so this first year, within the first year, 2 people retired, 1 person resigned, we added 3 new positions, which left us with 14 original staff members. So the following years, we filled those positions. We started with 23 staff members. We had 1 person retired, 2 people resigned. We added 3 additional positions. We were left with 8 original positions. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Okay. 2017, last school year, we started with 26 staff members. 1 retired, 1 resigned, which left us with 6 of the original 20. This year, we're starting with 26. I have no letters of retirement, no letters of resignation. I believe there could quite possibly be 2 retirements and 1 resignation, which would leave us at the end of this school year, starting next year, with 3 of the original staff members. So is that a lot of churn? Has anybody experienced that? Okay. I know some districts look just like this, if not worse. And I do recognize as well, because one thing that people mention is the staff increase. Wow, how'd you increase by 6? You add value to your district and the district sees it. Although sometimes anomalies happen and that number goes down for no good reason, and that has happened to a couple of our school districts in the region over the past year or so. So why do I share this? So one of the hardest things that I found in the work that I do is onboarding new staff members. We've been fortunate that we've been able to kind of raise our own, and some of the newer positions, these 3 new positions, were higher level positions, and that was by design to have a career path within our district. See, my goal is not to, my goal is to keep people, but one of the things I also try to do is equip people so they can leave and go someplace better. I think we have the greatest school district in the area, in the state. But what I don't want is I don't want staff members coming and joining our team and saying, you know, well, I'm just going to coast for the next 6 years until I retire, because that's awful. So we're constantly providing professional development and opportunities for our staff members to grow. You know, there's this old cartoon I think I shared maybe last year or the year before. It's this old cartoon like from the Far Side, and it's like it's a CEO and a CFO having a conversation, and the CFO is looking at a spreadsheet, and he said, you know, oh my gosh, our budget for training is ridiculous. What if all these people leave? And the CEO says, what if we don't provide the training and all these people stay? Right? So with Itil, what it does is it gives us the rules of the game. It gives us what positions people play. It helps people see and realize and understand that they're a critical part of providing a service to our customers, to our staff and to our students and to our communities. So the hardest thing is when new staff members come on board and they're brand new to K-12 education. You know, the people in the room that work in a K-12 organization realize that it's like the craziest business on the face of the planet, right? We don't do things that are normal a lot of times, right? Seeing some looks in the back of like, you're right. So what we set out to do was to provide Itil, basic level Itil training for our staff, to get them to understand how the game is played. And then once we reach critical mass, which hopefully will be at the end of this summer, is it'll become a requirement for anybody who applies in our district. You would be surprised at the talent that's out there that have higher credentials than who are applying for our positions. I was talking with a school district the other day. You know, we need to think about how we title our jobs. We have this education language that we use, and some districts have to because of bargaining agreements and so on and so forth. But it's amazing one of the things that I saw when I came to the district is we were posting a job, and I looked at the title, I forget what it was called, and we're like, well, let's call it a lead field technician or something like that. It's like, well, what does that mean? And so we started doing some research about, okay, so if we're looking for somebody with the skills that are in industry, what could we title that? So we called it service coordinator, because when you look at Monster.com or Indeed.com or what's the other one, Glassdoor, you type in service coordinator and there's tons of openings, right? We've had no problem filling positions. For that position, I think we had 30 applicants. We whittled it down to 6, and all of them could do the job. So we've started changing the titles. So hopefully in the future, right now it's a preferred requirement if you apply for the Mukilteo School District for the technology department, is that you have at least the Itil Foundations qualification, the certification. And there's a whole certification that you can go. But here's the thing, what if you get a good candidate that doesn't have that certification? You invest in them. We tell them, we'll hire you, but you gotta get the certification within 1 year. By the way, we're gonna pay for it. By the way, you're gonna do it while you're on the job. So we're trying to invest in our people. Questions about that? Pause for a minute. Is this resounding with anybody, or you think I'm crazy, or?
It's awesome.
Thanks.
But we still think you're crazy.
Opposite of a heckler.
I did notice one thing that was conspicuous on your circular slide there. I didn't see training listed. Where does that fit? Is it part of the change management, or how does that fit into the overall process here?
Great question. So repeat the question. So Matt did not see training and where that fits into training.
I mean, I missed it. It's there, but I didn't see it. Is it part of change management? Knowledge management, maybe?
It's part of change management. I think it's a component that I really think should be called out, because we want to call it out in education. But the way that we've looked at it is part of service design. So service design is part of the transition. It's also part of the operation. It's kind of this integral part that wraps around. So to walk you through, so for our active panel, so we're putting active panels in every single one of our classrooms. You'd be surprised in the number of teachers that say, am I getting one in my classroom? Yes, every single classroom across the district. We don't mean me, do you? Yes, I mean, you know, it's like, so it's part of service design. So when we're planning the implementation, we have to think about training. So what does that training plan look like? For us, since we're doing it during the school year, after hours, is it just in time? So we launched at our highest needs building. We provided training 2 days before they got installed. They were installed overnight, over a week, and then we went and followed up with them. So that's part of the service design, service transition, and now that they're in operation at that building, is we're going to be going back on a regular basis to continually help our teachers gain and our staff gain skills on how to use them.
Do you have that defined yet, your schedule? Do you have an idea?
What was that?
We're dealing with the same thing, we just put them in over the summer.
Do we have a schedule?
Yeah. Are you
Yeah.
going to go every month, or is it every couple of weeks? Or? We can talk about that
This
later,
thing's
too.
bugging me. Take off my name badge. Yeah, we don't know. We know that we train before they get them, while they get them, after they get them. And then, since we ordered such a large quantity of the active panels, it's providing as part of the package deal an educational consultant. So we get like an additional staff member that will go out and work with individual teachers, teams of teachers, and buildings. So hopefully this will continue to hit that building on a regular basis. We're trying to get out of the mindset of, okay, we've done the training, check, we're done, on to the next building. So we find that doesn't go well.
The JIT model works pretty well with these boards, I found.
Yeah.
Yep. They have to use them before they have questions about them, and then you want to get somebody on site that knows about them.
Yeah.
But Greg's one of our experts, which is great. But yeah.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to move quickly here. Next, staff turnover, talked about that. Service level agreements. Okay, so what is interesting about the work that we do is when something breaks and goes wrong, the majority of the time is our staff is like, well, it's been an hour, why isn't it fixed yet? Okay, I love this cartoon of Homer. A few days, well, I want it now. You know, a computer that is used once a month in a building, I just made that up, but a computer that's used once in a month will go down, and our staff members will be calling us 30 minutes after they put in a work order. Why isn't it done? We need it next month. We'll get to it. So what we've been working around is this concept of service level agreements. We all know about this. We all use them. Okay, if you have cable or a telephone, if you have a wireless telephone, if you use Google, I would wager a guess that every single person in here has a service level agreement with the company. Basically it's based on impact and urgency is the metrics that are used for a service level agreement. And it's basically, I'm signing up for when this service goes down, it will be restored in X amount of hours. Or when it's a private organization, there's a monetary rebate or credit sometimes. Okay, you're familiar with them? Okay, so this was one thing that we've been working on. It's taken about a year to get us now, and we're going to be launching it later this fall. So what we did is, in a staff meeting of our whole tech department, is we set up this spreadsheet, the categories, over here on the left, and we said, okay, I want you to list down everything that you do. We broke up into teams, and so there was like, okay, well, there's an account, we reset passwords, these are the issues. And we have already been using work order systems, so we were able to mine some of the data as well out of there of what's been reported. So we listed down pretty much everything that we do, and it's like 300 columns or something, or 300 rows. Then what we did is we ran we took the list to a group of a stipend position in our district called the computer specialists, and they're kind of like the first responder, break fix people in the building. They're classroom teachers that we think have time to do this during their day, so we give them a stipend, and they wind up staying after the day. And when something goes wrong, we think that they can go in, they can fix it right away, but then they put in a position to where they have to choose, okay, do I want to leave my kids alone and go fix their problem, or do I want their class not to work out and stay with my class? You guys, okay? Not a great model, but we have it and we're working with it. So we had them list, you know your staff, you know the importance of these items, so we want you to tell us how much time should lapse before it's fixed. And we were really afraid, scared taking this to them because we thought that they would all say 15 minutes. 30 minutes. We want this fixed in an hour. We want the building rewired in a day, or something like that. But they actually came back with not too bad a responses. So we looked at them, we had them fill out a survey, and that survey calculated averages and told us the majority. So they said, for an example, I'm just going to look at the top line, account lockout, password reset. So when you type in your password 3 times wrong, it locks your account as a security measure. So then they have to call our help desk, which is a different issue, but they got to call our help desk, and then we say, Kyle, are you really Kyle? Yeah, I know Kyle. Yeah, I'll reset his password. It's a really bad thing, but it's there. We're working on fixing it. So they said that in looking at business days, that within 4 hours, and this just calculates the hour here, I think is what this is. So within 4 hours is we should be able to reset their password. That's what the computer specialist said. So can you imagine being a classroom teacher who's gotten locked out of their computer and we're just like, we're gonna wait 4 hours to let you back in? You know, half the day, half instructional time lost, right? We focused on business hours, not on a real life 24-hour clock, because we don't have a night crew, contrary to popular belief. We don't have a night crew, we don't have a second shift or a third shift. We don't work on the weekends, although we do. So what we did is we went back to our work order system. We mined average days open, calculated that into business hours, and we were saying, I'm bad at math. What does that work out to be? How many minutes is that? 0.05? Is that like 15 minutes or something? 20 minutes? Hey, that's pretty reasonable. That's how fast we've been doing it. So what we said was, okay, we're gonna tell them, since they told us it's fine for 4 hours, we're gonna say it's gonna take 4 hours, but we're gonna do it because we know we have a track record of doing it in 15 minutes. Okay? It's not an illusion. We're planning for the high, for the September. You know, when there's not enough time to get everything done, you plan for that high time mark. Is this making sense? Okay. So then what we did, so real quick, so we looked at this blue, and then we took it back to our tech department, because what I didn't want to do is make the change based on 100% feedback from our building staff and not include my tech department, because that never seems to go well. So I took it back to our staff member, to our department meeting a few months later and said, hey, remember when we did this work here? They said, yeah. Remember we said we were going to ask computer specialists? Yeah, that's what they said. This is what we can do. How do you guys feel about half an hour or 4 hours? And they're like, yeah, that sounds great. We can do it in 15 minutes. Okay, so that way we account for sometimes the work will take longer during larger periods of higher amount of work. So we went through this process and we're working on finalizing getting the 200 or 300 items that are on this list. So why are we doing this? Well, it's part of the communication process. We want, and is anybody from Auburn in here? So, oh, it's a bummer. So Auburn School District does an awesome job at this. If you want really somebody who knows what they're talking about, call Jennifer Klauser or email Jennifer Klauser at Auburn. They have had their SLAs set for a long time. Continuous service, so we're going to start decreasing the times to drive efficiency up. So, you know, in a couple of years, we'll drop that 4 hours down to 2 hours, help put pressure on a little bit to our team. But Auburn's been doing this for a while. We're going to publish this for our staff in our district. So there's no more, well, when's it going to be done? It's like, well, we'll get to it when we get to it. Well, it takes about, you know, you guys want it done in 4 hours, it'll be about 4 hours. So hopefully they'll be able to see. Long-term plan is what I really want to do, which I haven't told our tech department yet, is I'd actually like our work order system to be more open publicly in our district, so they could actually see the metrics of how we're meeting them in real time. Okay, so some of these things, there's no response or there's no service level agreement. So this is really important to note. If you do this work, start with a handful of items or start with what the work that you do on a regular basis. Don't feel like you have to document and have time for everything. Point two, understand that sometimes you're held to underpinning contracts which are outside of your control. Do you know what an underpinning contract is? Okay, so you subscribe to Comcast. Comcast tells us that they'll always be there and be our friend, but then somebody hits a traffic or a light pole outside your district office and they take down your internet connection, and then people are freaking out because they can't use the phone or use the internet or whatnot. And they're like, well, when are you gonna get it fixed? And so we have to be able to clearly communicate with our staff that this is an underpinning contract that we have no control over. It's kind of the way that a lot of our resources are going. When you think about Google, you know, last year Google Drive was down for like 4 hours and people were running around, we're gonna die. And we had no control over it. Same thing with Microsoft, they've been down. Anybody over Sipsy? Anybody a Skyward user? Yeah, kind of, come on, show your hands. Who's a Skyward user? All right, put your hand down if you're self-hosted. Who felt the pain in April last year? Yeah. We weren't with Sipsy then, so we were like, it's all right. So for things like that, is you don't have a response. Okay. What questions do you have about that? Yes.
Comment.
Yeah.
So for some of those things that have underpinning contracts, if you decide to break your SLAs into response and resolution, what we did for ours is we set a response time, but not a resolution time. So we said, the internet's out for the whole district. We're going to respond in 15 minutes. Like, yeah, we're on. We don't have a resolution SLA.
So that's what I'm not showing you. There's some other cells that are hidden. See, it goes A to U. So we've been working with, I didn't want to come with too much, but we've been working on response time. So Google Drive, you find out Wisipsi has gone. Is anybody from Wisipsi here? I know that. Okay, so you find out Wisipsi's down. So you have, for that underpinning contract is we might have in there that we'll notify staff within 30 minutes of finding out. Okay, you got to be careful when you do that because you have to document when you find out and keep that somewhere. Because without fail, staff member will say, well, when did you find out? You'll have a principal. Well, you told us at 4. When did you find out? Found out at 2. Well, you said 30 minutes. Why didn't you tell us in 30 minutes? Because we were eating lunch. So you want to be able to document that. But yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. What we have started doing actually before this work is we're doing some research around communication, how we could better, more clearly communicate with our staff. Cornell University's IT staff has like this system down. They actually have all of, if you haven't seen them, they have all of their communication templates up on their website for public use. And they're just crisp and clear and to the point. And so we adopted those. So when changes, whether they're planned or unplanned, or if there's a service change, is now we send out district-wide email. And then we respond to the unplanned outage of when it's restored. Because we were starting to get hit by some of our bargaining units around, well, you never communicate. You never told me that was down. I had class. Why didn't you tell me Google was down? Well, actually we did. We sent a district-wide email that said, and then we sent another one that said it was only down for 15 minutes. Okay, so that's another technique. Other questions? Great question. Like I said, this work goes deeper than what I'm sharing here.
Send an email that Google's down.
If you're a Google district, I would not send out an email. If you use Gmail, when I first started teaching about 20 years ago, is we had Eric. We had this tech director, Eric. I was a CTE teacher, and without fail, your email would stop working, and then all of a sudden you'd get a ding and be like, ding, network's down, ding, network restored. Because he would send out an email to notify everybody that the email server was down or like the network was down. It's like, that doesn't really help us, Eric. Any other questions? Yes, Matt.
Did you find this lends a lot more credibility to the department then? Where it's,
I think so. I think so because I don't know about you guys, but in our district, we have a great district. We have tons, not just my department, but like this. I don't know. It's a dream. Like our staff are amazing and they're awesome and they're friendly and we all collaborate. But I think there's this perception of, well, you guys play favorites. We if you don't know anything about Mukilteo School District, is that it's physically divided in half. With Paynefield and Boeing is right in the middle of our district, and that creates some unusual divisions, socioeconomically, politically, and so I think that sometimes there's this oddity around. Well, that side of the district gets more than we do, or you respond to them quicker. And so I think just having it clear and documented, we can say, and then reporting out on how we're doing on our SLAs annually or biannually or weekly or monthly, however we're going to do it, is that it does make us a little more credible because we can say, well, look, we said you guys wanted it. We said that we would do it in 4 hours and we're doing it in like 15 minutes. And so I think it's going to take some time to communicate that to people, for people to believe it and to see it and understand it. But I think it will help us be a little more credible. You know, because I think, you know, there's always that perception that the tech department's just in the back playing video games and eating Skittles.
Or black
No.
box. Or black box often too.
Yeah.
They just put a request in and then something spits out the other side.
Yeah. So we gotta work on that a little bit. Great questions. Okay, for time, I'm moving on. Change advisory board. This is the thing that has helped me the most in the work that we do. Change advisory board is a concept around having basically a small committee or a small group track changes. And I know we're getting close to lunch and I don't want to keep it through lunch, but here's the short of it. This is probably the most helpful to me from a leadership position. This is the most helpful concept or practice within Itil. It's managing change with people control. Okay, so whether you're sending out a patch, whether you're sending out an update, whether you're changing SISs, you know, those types of changes, you should think about how you manage them. Just don't let them happen. So this is from my previous district. We were really struggling. This was probably 7 years ago. It was I will say it was in Renton School District. My previous district I was in, we were really wrestling with access to the internet for instructional uses. And we had some people who worked for us, they're no longer there, but it was just a firm no all the time. No. Can we have access to Prezi? No. Why? Well, because of security. And it was almost comical. It was like, could be a Saturday Night Live skit. And so at the time, I was the director of instructional technology, and at the time, Tom Halley, actually he's still the director of technology infrastructure or operations or something like that. He and I are friends and colleagues, partners, and we sat down and we're just like, why does this always have to be a no when there's no concern about unblocking this? And so we just said, we were going through Itil together, and we were just like, let's do a change advisory board. So we brought together like 25 stakeholders of like principals, parents, teachers, librarians, curriculum director, community relations, super good partner to have, especially when angry parents and community are gonna call in saying that, you know, something inappropriate is sent through the filter. And we set up this change advisory board, and we said, okay, here's the way it's gonna work. And I won't bore you with the details, but I facilitated some of the meetings, and I just said, okay, we're going to go by category. We're not talking about individual websites. We're just going to talk about categories. We're going to have the definition. Stakeholders are going to weigh in. We have category, you know, you have your categories, and you have, okay, what about, you know, preschool, elementary, or primary, elementary, middle school, high school staff, and super user. And the thing that Tom and I decided is that there was no longer a super user category, I think. I don't know if that's changed, but we said staff is just staff. It doesn't matter. And so we went through, because what was going on at that time is that we started looking at the requests for Service Desk and for Tom's team. He managed the web filter at that time. And so before we met, we would see on average 8 requests per day to unblock a website, which meant that we were taking up valuable staff time reviewing that website, they were trying to, not necessarily Tom's team, but in the past, trying to figure out a way to say no. But then what we also said was, what we also saw is that on average thanks, McKay. What we saw is there were 2 requests per day that contradicted the other 8. Have you guys ever seen that? So like I remember vividly of like one of the requests was for high school art students to unblock DeviantArt. And then without fail, every time we unblock it, there would be a request within like 5 minutes to block DeviantArt. Right? So it's like DeviantArt's like art, it used to be an art portfolio kind of thing. I don't know what it is now, but so we're like, this is just insane. 1, we're saying no, and 2, we're doing the same work over and over and over and over and over. We have no clear way to say yes. And we have no clear way to say no when it really is a no. So Tom and I sat down, we looked at the categories, I said, Tom, look, you look at the categories, you take everything off the table for IT security, but no, I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna challenge you on it. And he said, all right, I'll do that. So he went through the list of categories, he drew a red line and said everything down here is, I believe, is for security, for performance, to keep out malicious content, or required by SEPA or board policy. So we had like a category gambling, because we have board policy, you can't gamble, but still we find it okay to do March Madness bracket. It's beyond the point. So we looked at it, I'm like, that's awesome. No disagreements, no disagreements. So we brought it to the committee, we said, okay, we're looking at 120 categories. Okay, it's a fast process. If you firmly believe this should not be unblocked or it should be blocked, you got to speak up. Because if not, we're going to move on. And I don't want anybody to go out and say after this meeting, like, well, I think no, but you know, they didn't really listen to me, but I really didn't say anything. And so within a year, as we had unblocked, I think like most of the 120 categories. We made 120 changes. There were 120 categories. We made 120 changes. Like business and economy was closed off for elementary kids for some reason. So we were like, okay, that's an easy one. And the students, we had students on the committee, they were our biggest advocates because we got down to like Facebook was its own category. And I was just like having these heart palpitations. I was like, oh my gosh, these kids are gonna be like, yeah, Facebook. I'm like, oh my gosh. And they were like, no, we're just gonna waste time. Given this was like 6 years ago. No, we're just gonna waste time on it. We don't need that. Okay. Anybody else? Any parent want to challenge that? No, they'll waste time. Teachers, no, they'll waste time. All right, it stays blocked. But then we have that consistent message to go back and say, you know, no, it's going to be blocked. Okay, so after all of this, it's a change advisory board. So then what was the result? What do you think the result was? Interactive part, half? So half. So we got 4 to 5 requests every day? Two, okay. None. We got 0 requests after we did this. It took us about a year to go through. We met twice. Some of the meetings were really hard. None of them got contentious. But after a year of doing the work, as we went down to 0. Now I'm sure, because we also communicated out to our staff the changes that have been made and we're no longer reviewing. If you want an individual website unblocked, that's already blocked, it's probably miscategorized. You have to send that through, and I don't know if it's the same way still, but they had to send it through their principal, and their principal had to forward it on to us, and the principal had to kind of explain, well, no, this is a good thing because it aligns to this goal, and we're doing this with it, and a lot of times they were miscategorized. Okay, another instance of change advisory board is, so we have launched Skyward Cumulative this year, and it's been awesome. And it's been really good. It's great if you haven't seen it, if you haven't used it. I know you haven't used it because we're the only ones who have. It's really great. It's a good product. But here's the thing: is our business department's on Skyward, and so soon they're going to be rolling on to Cumulative as well. And if you know anything, is you can keep them separated, but it's better to have them combined. And so what happens, and I saw this in my previous district, is that HR could make a change to a staff record, which could change the teacher name and the courses they teach, which creates a huge issue for the SIS department if you're organized that way. So when we launch, as we're setting up a change advisory board, we talked about it yesterday, that there'll be a representative from payroll, HR, technology, and the business services office. And so then we'll be able to talk about the changes. Okay, questions about this? I know we're getting down to lunch. Okay, so there are 3, if you want to go through this, there are 3 great books that I've found. The one on the left, I feel is the best and the most comprehensive, especially if you want to, there's my fake Rubik's Cube, if anybody got one of those. It's excited it was going to be real. This book is probably the best one. Yes, I keep it in my backpack all the time. No, I don't. That was supposed to be funny. But it's pretty comprehensive, and also as you can think about, oh yeah, service level agreements. Look it up, and you can go right to the section. They'll walk you through some examples. We bought for the people that are our staff that are going through in the implementations. We bought them all 3 books. Some staff members have found the middle book the best for them and their learning style. I know our server, our junior server and storage admin really loves the Visible Ops book. You can get them all through Amazon. They're like $6 to $15 or something like that. Sorry, 40. This one's 40. Made a big mistake. That one's 40. But they're good books and they're good reads. Okay? So that's all I have. That's all that's keeping you from lunch. If you want the presentation, you can email me. You can find me on LinkedIn.